Good to have Kevin McPherson with us here from the Pig Trail Nation. Give him a follow at AR Hoop Scoop. And been a while, Kevin. Good to have you on halftime today. How are you?
Good to be back with you guys, man. Doing great. Sun's shining, and, basketball season keeps going, and it's really year-round, so yeah. I could talk about it any day of the week.
Certainly. Well, we all wish we were talking about Arkansas in the Final Four today, but what a fantastic, enjoyable season this was. A lot of fun to watch this basketball team, but just like you said, I mean, you're kind of reminded that this is a 12-month-a-year sport now, when the day after the Elite Eight run is over, Desi Sills announces he's transferring out, and here you get a new transfer coming in from Pitt. So it's today's college basketball fully on display for you, right?
It is. And here's the thing. If there's a poster child for basketball never sleeps, it's got to be Eric Musselman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy is constantly in the kitchen working on something. He's got all burners on, the stove's on, the microwave's got something in it. Those may be bad analogies, but he's the basketball version of a guy that's just constantly multitasking. I'm sure he squeezes in some sleep somewhere, but, during the entire time they were in the bubble, they were recruiting Toney, who committed yesterday from Pitt. I wrote a story about him in early March. He'd gotten in the portal late February. Pitt's season wasn't even over yet. Eric Musselman and his staff, they're Johnny on the spot once guys hit the portal, making that initial contact. Arkansas started prioritizing him immediately.
Mm-hmm.
We wrote about that back in early March. Well, we saw the commitment yesterday. So while we're taking for granted the work that they're putting in to game plan and get ready for teams, they're recruiting the portal actively and figuring out, obviously did a great job with Toney, but they've already contacted, Phil, over 40 players to this point that we know about. Now, there may be more that we haven't heard about, but this is a staff that never stops.
Well, and how many more spots are they looking to fill for next season? Did I read properly that there'd be – it all depends on, I guess, if Moses goes into the draft, which I can't see why he wouldn't. You might have 2 scholarships available. Is that right?
Right now, that would be correct, because if Moses goes, Desi's gone, those are 2 right there. You had 3 with the senior grad transfers, but they signed 2 in the early period, Chance Moore, Cole Maywin, and then with Toney coming in, let's just say that those 3 presumably take up the spots of those 3 senior grad transfers. So right now you've got the spots that would be vacated by Moses Moody's departure, plus we know Desi Sills in the portal. So 2 there. And I think we're going to see more. I'd be surprised we don't see a couple of more, even potentially 3 or 4 more. But I think anywhere from, 3 to 4 or 5 more guys beyond Toney would not surprise me one bit.
Where on the floor, what position? Muss said that Toney is sort of a positionless basketball player, but I don't know if that's the style of play Muss, necessarily employs, although that might change year by year. What out of these 2 spots that are available, where do you think is a position of need that Muss and the coaching staff might go after for someone that would be available immediately?
Yeah, I think what they would probably be looking at right now, when you realize that Jalen Tate and Justin Smith are moving on, Jalen Tate was that big combo guard that could run a team. And even though they've got K.K. Robinson coming back, a point guard, Devontae Davis, who can play on the ball, I think we'll see more of that. And we know J.D. Notae, they'd like to put him in situational spots where he's on the one, but I think they're going to look for a big guard that could actually be a primary handler and facilitator as well, that at least could play that role, maybe not as demonstrably as Tate did, but perhaps. And I think they're going to look for another big, I say big, a versatile positionless guy, 6'6", 6'7", that can rebound the ball. Maybe won't have the hops that Justin did at that elite 48-inch, but, they've got Kamari Johnson, who sat out after transferring at midterm, 6'7" forward out of Little Rock, but I'm not sure that they're done trying to fill a spot there. So I think definitely when you're starting to talk about guys with size that can defend multiple positions. We saw with Justin Smith, if you had to switch, he could defend guards. He was good at defending guards when they drove in. If they got an angle on the man defending them, he could help. But I think they're going to look for more versatile guys like that. And there's so much small ball being played. We saw Arkansas had to go to that kind of lineup multiple times in the NCAA tournament. So I don't think Musselman's going to have a problem going out and trying to find a bunch of guys 6'5" to 6'7" and roll them out.
Well, and you mentioned Kamari Johnson. He's the forward who transferred out of Little Rock, 6'7", and the way that Muss described him yesterday on the Zoom to the media is that he is energetic, very physical, and sounds like he's the kind of player that you could really get something from early with this team. You think Johnson will make a difference for this club next year?
I do. I got to cover him. You know, I'm in Little Rock, so I covered Little Rock Trojans too. I go to some of their games and keep an eye on that program. And when he was third team All Sun Belt a couple of years ago, and I got to see him in person, one of the things is he's just constantly attacking the rim and getting inside, battling for rebounds. You know, he's not a big hops guy, but he does find ways to draw contact because of how physical he is and because he does seek contact and get to the free throw line. So Musselman talked about that, but he's spot on. That's exactly the type of player he is. Musselman said yesterday, you know, he would like to see more on his face-up game and some mid-range shooting. That is something that I noticed with Kamani. He didn't take a lot of shots that weren't right around the basket. But look, it depends on who you have around him as well. Yeah, you want guys to be as versatile as they can be, but you know, I think he's definitely going to help this team with who he is now. And as Musselman and that staff develop him more, and he adds some things, makes it even a better opportunity for him to help the team.
Kevin McPherson joining us here on Halftime. Kevin, let's talk a little bit more about some of these players and want to focus a little bit more on Toney, the new transfer coming in for the Razorbacks. What is Eric Musselman getting with Toney? He's the kind of more of a combo guard, can do a little bit of everything. Maybe not necessarily the best shooter, but I think he'll fit in really, really well with this Eric Musselman system.
Yeah, he talked about positionless. So I think DC's a guy that can play multiple backcourt, defend multiple backcourt positions. You want to see that when Arkansas goes small. He's a guy like Moses, and even the year before that, Mason Jones and Isaiah Joe at times were playing the four, as Muss would say it, when they went small in a four-guard lineup. So he's that kind of guy. He's a lefty. He finishes above the rim. When I've watched him I've seen him play not in person, but live on TV, but mostly with highlights. And what I really like about him is he's quick, and his instincts are really good, finding soft spots behind a defense, and he slips in to get offensive rebounds and put back. He's just an active guy. And you like those guys with basketball instincts like Devontae Davis. He reminds me of a bigger version of him. Not the same type of player, but just they both have an instinct for those 50-50 balls. And that's one thing about DC Toney. So I think, you know, what you mentioned is him as a shooter, 30, in the mid-low 30s from three. But, you know, he's not going to necessarily be as an effective three-point shooter as Moses Moody was at times, but I think he's a guy that can come in and help fill the void with Moody moving on.
You mentioned we might see a few more transfer names hit the portal, and I'm curious your thoughts on Connor Vanover. Started the year strong enough. I mean, you saw what he could potentially do, but Kevin, the minutes dwindled throughout the rest of the season. Didn't even see hardly any action during the NCAA tournament. In your opinion, what's the future like for Connor Vanover with this Razorback basketball team?
You know, he was a guy that spent a lot of time his redshirt year getting stronger, and I think he missed a lot of practice in the off season. COVID came around. I know whether it was COVID or something else, I know he had missed some time and lost some weight. We saw him hold his own throughout most of the non-conference, and there were certain matchups in conference play where he really helped Arkansas. You know, I think back to the first Auburn game. I think back to Mississippi State. There were more. He really had some good games, even in SEC play. But you're right, his role diminished. But he's a guy that I think if he gets back in the weight room, continues to work on getting back some of that muscle mass and some strength maybe that he lost last year, and then just continue to work on not being easily pushed away from the block when he tries to defend, finishing through contact better around the rim. This is a guy that to me I think is still a high major player, and you hope that his career continues to go well at Arkansas. We don't know. I'm not going to speculate about guys staying or going right now. I do think more guys will leave. But he's a guy that I think definitely belongs at the high major level.
Completely agree with you. And I think this will be kind of more of an evolving question as, like you said, we start to see maybe more guys come in, more guys leave. But the expectations moving forward with this team, now, you've cracked the Sweet 16, first time in 25 years. You really saw what Eric Musselman can do with this team. So in your mind, what should the expectation be of fans moving forward? Is it Sweet 16 or bust now moving forward? Because I don't think that's necessarily fair because, like we're probably saying right before our eyes, the team has changed from year 1 to year 2, and it's definitely going to change from year 2 to year 3. So what should the expectation be for fans as they start moving forward in the Eric Musselman tenure here?
Oh, goodness, reality and what people's perception is their reality. Those are two things. For me, it's simply this. He basically remade the roster in 2 years. And this season he comes in with one guy that really had any considerable experience. That's Desi Seals, who's now moved on. Ethan Henderson had a little bit, but look what he did. And I think he finally struck a balance after Arkansas started slow in SEC play. I think he finally struck a balance in the rotation by basically promoting some of those freshmen. We know Moses Moody had a big role from day one, started every game. But I think Arkansas was only going to be as good as it could be when guys like Devo Davis and Jalen Williams, I think K.K. Robinson would have been in the same situation had he remained healthy, until those guys had gotten themselves ready to be elevated, because their talent level is unquestionable. And I think that was a big key. Musselman, to me, is a mastermind at preparing for games and in-game adjustments and understanding his personnel and roster. And once he tweaks it and gets it figured out, we saw the results. A year ago when Isaiah Joe went out hurt, he just didn't have the options because Arkansas didn't have any depth or size. But even then, they were really close in a lot of games to beating some ranked teams and good teams, and would have been an NCAA tournament team, I think, had that injury not affected the team for 11 games. But having said that, now seeing 2 years of him, I think expectations should be that he's going to put a product on the floor that's going to be top 3, 4 in the SEC, typically annually. And you should think now, hey, he's going to put together teams, and with his coaching and ability to break down opponents with a week to get ready between SEC tournament and NCAA tournament, a team that can play itself in the second weekend. So expectations for a Sweet 16 every year, yes and no. Based on everything I described would be yes, but we always know matchups matter. Mm-hmm. Our guys hurt. There are all kinds of things that play into it. Sometimes you need luck, but typically I think he's going to put a product on the floor that you could say year in and year out, this team could make it to the Sweet 16 at least.
I'm with you on that too, but you're also right about reality and expectations. And sometimes things don't necessarily work out the way that you thought, especially in the NCAA tournament, which is the toughest thing to predict in all of sports. Kevin, appreciate your time. Thanks for hopping on with us today. Certainly would love to do it again as they continue building on this roster. It's going to be fun to watch them do it.
Good to be with you guys.
Thanks,
appreciate
Kevin.
it.
You got it. It's Kevin McPherson. Give him a follow on Twitter at ARHoopScoop. And you can also watch his reports, read his stuff at Pig Trail Nation. Baseball's on SEC Network Plus tonight. That means Joe's Grill and Cantina's got half-price apps and taps.
Yeah, half-price apps and taps at Joe's Grill and Cantina. And it's Fajita Friday at Joe's Grill and Cantina. Chicken fajita starting at $7, $8.
Fajita Friday!
That was beautiful. We need to get that in the – you're almost better than LeBron. You are better than LeBron James doing that. Fajita Friday.
I could beat him at basketball.
Just let that hang for a moment.
All right. Well, before we get to that, we'll touch on that when we come back. But let me tell you real quick, you can find Joe's Grill and Cantina, 3400 South 74th Street in Fort Smith, across from Harps, 479-478-9600. Can Matty T beat LeBron James?